Hi, this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and you're listening to Job Search Radio, as though you didn't know that already. And this is a show where I like to spend some time coaching people to play the game big by bringing on guests who will help you perform at an elite level, particularly as regards to job search. Now, on this show, I have on a guy who played big in his career. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about branding as relates to job search and what are his credentials. He helped to build the Absolut brand of vodka. This man knows what he's talking about. So he has a wonderful story that he's turned into a book that I think will be very helpful to you. So hang in there, enjoy the show, and let's sing along.
Are you looking for a new job or interested in leveling up? Job Search Radio is your go-to resource for insider tips on job hunting and growing your career. Here's your host, Jeff Altman.
So my guest on this show is Richard Lewis, former worldwide managing director for the Absolut brand at TBWA Chiat, and the author of a book called Why Hire Jennifer, a book that's about not just simply her, but about the notion of finding work in a time of social media and branding. Richard, welcome to Job Search Radio. Great to have you on.
Jeff, great to be on. Thanks for inviting me.
You're very welcome. So I'm perplexed. I'm confused. Doesn't happen often, but today's one of those days. How does someone who was so instrumental with Absolut wind up doing a job search book? What's the correlation between the two?
Yeah, what happened? I must have rolled the dice and gone in the wrong direction. So it's actually, I will de-perplex you right now. As a practitioner at a major advertising agency on a brand that I helped become very successful, particularly in the 80s, 90s, and the aughts, a household brand. I learned the tools that one uses to create and grow a brand.
And thus, we're now going to look at it from the standpoint of how growing a brand applies to people both in job search mode and career development mode. Am I right about that assumption?
Yeah, you are right. So when I left the agency, one of the things I wanted to do was teach. So I got a job at Yale, and I created my own course called Branding, People, Places, and Things. And this was a seminar for upper level students that introduced them to the notion of how brands work in the environment. Because brands are not just companies like Apple and Nike and Coke and so forth, but they're also countries like France and Japan and Vietnam, and they're people. People have their own brands, and this is not a new concept. This whole notion of branding has actually gotten pretty hot over the last decade, but how it applies to individuals and how individuals can use the same kind of tools that big company brands use, that's sort of what I bring to the party.
Fabulous. So let's say I'm a job hunter. I think Jennifer was a recent grad. Is my memory right about that?
Yeah, it's correct. So I met Jennifer, and I think that's actually her real. I met Jennifer, a recent college grad who came out of a Connecticut college that wasn't Yale, and she was interested in getting a job in broadcasting. And she didn't know how to go about it. She didn't think she had the credentials because she was really just sort of like a normal person. She had a B average, and she didn't have any real contacts, but she had an interest in getting into some kind of TV or radio environment. So I'm reading her resume, and it's pretty normal for a person who's just sort of just an average person who hasn't done anything spectacular, but wants to get a job in a field of their choice. So I read at the very bottom of the resume, where people sometimes put their interests, I discovered that she was a Scottish dancer. And I said,
ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, what the heck is a Scottish dancer? I said, I that was something I just was totally unfamiliar. And so she went on to tell me that since she was about 10 years old, it's not a sport, but I call it an activity. It's a competitive activity that requires learning certain dance moves and wearing a certain outfit and certain shoes, and it's very intricate. And she became good at it. In fact, she became so good at it that she competed locally and then regionally, and then she actually went to Scotland and became somewhat of a practitioner. And I said, well, that's terrific. This is your secret sauce. You're a Scottish dancer.
And how does that work for her in getting into broadcasting?
Well, that's a damn good question. See, I originally thought that this activity made her unique, and that could be an entree into what she wanted to do. But giving it more thought, I realized that it wasn't the activity, but it's the components of the activity that made her interesting. And what I mean is, here she demonstrated competitiveness. She demonstrated teamwork. She demonstrated this will to win and this ability to learn and to practice. And these are the same kind of skills that companies look for in people.
Fascinating, because I've been in recruiting now for more than 40 years, and most entry-level resumes are as interesting as melted vanilla ice cream.
Exactly. People haven't done anything, but what made her exciting as a candidate is that she could bring to a company the kinds of skill and talent that they could fertilize in that environment, because she'd already demonstrated that she's got the stuff. And instead of simply saying, I'm a team player, or I'm competitive, she demonstrated it through a unique activity that she excelled at.
Fascinating. For many people, and folks, I want to be clear, this is not just a show for entry-level professionals. This notion of branding applies across the board, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. But, for her, I understand this, but, the average individual may have internships to work with. Can that be a reasonable substitute?
Well, I think internships are supplemental to finding a job. I think they're critical, but not everybody has internships. There just aren't enough internships for everybody, and I think they're terrific. But sometimes, what do you do if you don't have them?
Gotcha. In her case, the answer became Scottish dancing.
Right.
Amazing.
So what she was able to do was she contacted a couple of television stations in the area, not a lot, and I was able to shape her job application, in effect, by getting away from the classical, okay, hi sir, hi hiring manager, here I am, attached is my resume, I look forward to hearing from you. Because one of my components of looking for a job is, once you've established your secret sauce or what your brand is, that you then have to use that as a lever to get into the firm. And the first thing you have to do is understand that your cover letter is not the chaperone to your resume.
I love that term. So, as the chaperone, it just is there as another lump on top of the vanilla ice cream.
Correct. So what I instruct my people, and I continue to teach at New York University, and I've actually gotten pretty good at it. And I use Why Hire Jennifer with my students to help them understand both their personal brands and to get them thinking about how they're going to be looking for jobs and internships as college proceeds, and even, as you say, even after college. But the cover letter, which also has a very dopey name, it's a cover letter, it's an opportunity for people to really write about themselves, to give their real selves a chance to be demonstrated to an employer, as opposed to just another black and white document to the black and white resume.
And the term cover letter is one of those anachronisms, because I know I'm old enough to remember when a cover letter was the cover to your resume. You know, it was stapled or paper clipped to a resume that you mailed out. Now that's an anachronism. No one does that anymore. And if they do, no one reads the resume anyway. But unless you do something unique. But I had a guest on.
Well,
please continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, I said the trick is that looking for a job is a step-by-step process, and what applicants have to do is excite the employer every step of the way to get them to the next step, which simply means I write a great cover letter telling them about me and why I would fit into their company. I get them interested in the resume, which in effect becomes the rational explanation for sort of an emotional argument that I've made on page 1. I get an appointment with someone at the company, preferably someone who is not in HR, but somebody who would manage a department where you want to work. I prep people for that interview by answering the 20 most likely questions you're going to be asked, and not giving people canned answers. Prepare for those interviews with answers to questions that they're certainly going to be asked. And I prep them how to write a thank you letter, how to get ready for the next interview. It's a little bit of in fact, I include in the book at the very beginning a graphic of a game board where in effect you're going around the game to get to the end, but you have to do it one step at a time, and you have to be patient, and you have to do each thing really well.
Do you have any spaces where people have to go back to the beginning?
I have spaces where people can take a breath. Wow, I got this far. Now, what do I do next?
It's so true. And folks, we'll be back with more from Richard in just a moment, but first my insider tip for this show, which is about informational interviewing, asking for advice, all sorts of good stuff. And I want to always encourage people, ask for help. It is so important to ask for help and advice from people that you know and people that you're introduced to. The however is often people make a mistake. And the big mistake people make is you don't follow through on the advice. I know it's bizarre, but I run into what are nicknamed in many fields as ask-holes, who just ask questions all the time, and you can only assume that they're trying to make contact with me or with the other person, and they've just wasted my time. You know, they've asked me a question, they've asked for advice about how to handle situations, and they don't follow through. So very simply, my advice for you is, if you're going to take someone's time, if you're going to schedule an informational interview and they give you advice about what to do next, follow through on it and let them know that you follow through on it. It's very likely that this person has paved the path for you by contacting the individual that they're going to interview or that they've mentioned to you to give them a heads up that you might be reaching out. Don't leave them high and dry by not following through. So that's my tip for this show. Let's come back to Richard and pick up where we left off. So we're on the game, in the game, playing the game big. I love that way of phrasing it.
And we're not high and dry.
We have products for that.
Yes, we do. Yeah, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit here in terms of the things that the book goes into to help adults find a job. But I realize in thinking that so many people are simply unprepared to look for a job. I mean, the most glaring group is college grads. But even people who've had a job or two, they've never gotten the right habits to find the next job in their career. And so often people just rely on luck or lack thereof. They meet somebody and says, hey, you should check this out. Or they see an ad that says, wow, maybe that's something good for me. Or they get fired. And they say, what do I do now? And they meet somebody who says, what have you thought about? Instead, and so these things, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, but there's no strategy to it. And when we do this, we just sort of left to other people's devices to straighten out our careers, where there are so many things that we can do to plot a course of success. And success, as defined by doing what we want to be doing and getting enjoyment out of it and getting rewarded. And if more people were to do this, the Jennifer route, as I call it, I think you'd have fewer polls that tell you that 3/4 of Americans don't like their jobs.
I think there's a variety of reasons for that, but just to backtrack to something you said, most people don't understand that the skills needed to find a job are different and complement the skills needed to do a job. And to get in the door, to have the conversations, requires completely different skill sets than actually performing. So that's really where the deficiency for a lot of people really lies, in that knowledge of how to get in the door and then how to interview for maximum effect, how to negotiate salary, every step along the way, there's a skill set that people have next to no experience with. So it's no wonder that they find it difficult to execute a plan, because they don't know how they should plan it and they don't think of asking for advice.
I'll give you an example of what I tell people to do, which is contrary to what they are normally doing. I mean, most people, they go to the job boards and they send in a resume, and they have no idea that the thousands or tens of thousands of people who may already be applying, and how the companies will only look at, say, the first 100, if that many, and you may be the most perfect applicant for a given position, but a firm may never even look at the resume because it came in an hour or two late. Or you may be looking at even a company website and seeing that, there's certain jobs that are available. Well, those listings are often stale, because companies typically are not in any hurry to pull down these jobs because they've got other things to do, and they harvest resumes for some future date. And So you may think that, wow, I'm look at all this progress I'm making. I sent out 100 resumes. I'm sure I'm going to hear from someone. You hear this all the time. I haven't heard from anybody. I sent out 500 resumes. Because in many cases, you're just sort of tossing them into the wind.
Post and pray. That's the language the recruiters describe that version of job search as. You post your resume on a job board, you pray that someone responds to it.
Yeah, it doesn't work. You know, somebody, just like some person who buys a lottery ticket wins. Think of all the people who buy the tickets that don't win. What people have to do simply is figure out, gee, where would I like to work? Let's turn it around. Where would I like to work? What kind of company? What kind of industry? And given the ability to find out information at your fingertips now, we can contact the company. We can figure out who the hiring manager is, or the director, or the boss of a given department. And guess what? Contact him directly. Contact him directly. Contact her directly, and put yourself in front of them. And I'll tell you a little secret.
Don't worry, no one's listening, so we'll keep it a secret.
All right. My little secret is this. Email is a dead fish. Email is a dead fish because, first of all, people get so many emails. They now have so many screens to keep out the email they don't want to see. And it's really an ineffective method to look for a job, period. What people should do, what candidates should do, is write a good old-fashioned letter, attach their resume, and stick it in the old-fashioned U.S. mail. Because companies, executives, they don't get a lot of mail. And they find it's much safer to open it, and it arouses curiosity. So that is my little secret for getting attention, to get the ball rolling at a particular company once you figure out who and where to contact.
You know, I guessed on when I first launched the show, maybe 6, 7 episodes in, and I'm over 100 now. And she spoke about some of the atypical ways to get your resume in front of people. So there would be the box that would be delivered with a single shoe to allow you to get your foot in the door.
Right.
Coupled with a resume. And she said, it's corny, but I tracked the statistics on it, and more than 70% of people who tried this were getting in the door. There was the person who said, you know, I know my resume is not going to impress you. This is what I've actually done that relates to what you do or want someone to do. And he would include an hourglass. Give me 5 minutes of time. If I can't demonstrate the fit, we end the conversation. Little things like that with the resume or the supporting pitch worked very well at a certain point. So I'm not a big fan of mailing because with large firms, sometimes they have compliance issues because they have to do their government reporting, which translates into the resume has to go from the hiring manager to HR, who has to scan it into their applicant tracking system for government reporting. But I know for small and mid-sized firms, it can work.
Well, also, I have to say that the woman who recommends sending your resume in a shoe, after a certain point, you must run out of shoes.
You buy them at Payless. I know that's not a sponsor of the show.
I think the important thing is that you have to find a method to be noticed. And obviously, firms behave differently, how they treat people who are contacting them. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it well. But you have to understand that companies put up defenses. That's why You know, in the old days, if you would, you could call up a company and somebody would actually answer the phone. And then you would call up a company and then try to get past the secretary who wasn't there yet, whether you call early or you call late. And then you call up a company that then they have voicemail. And it's very hard to do a pitch on a voicemail. And a lot of people don't even listen to their voicemail these days. They said, it can't be important. It's just not important. So you have to find a method. I don't recommend dropping off cakes and cookies and shoes, and I don't recommend putting in a fortune cookie, because the word corny doesn't play well with everyone. But if you have a classy way, if you have a different idea about how to get noticed, then by all means try it. But the trick is to find a method that works for you in the field that you're looking for.
No argument there. So for the experienced job hunter, yes, they can follow some of these tactics. What else can they do for brand building that will cause them to be noticed by employers? What do you think are some of the things they can do?
Well, the first thing you have to do is be certain of what the heck your brand is. Okay, so you have to walk the talk. So it's not a matter of saying, "Hey, my brand is this," because you don't have to say those words to have a brand. Companies don't say, "Hey, let me tell you about my brand." They just do it. So what people have to do is demonstrate through, let's say through social media. First of all, they have to behave themselves on social media, because we have to remember that when it's on the internet, it's instant, it's everywhere, and it's always. And companies now are very interested and very peaky to check on what you're doing during your off hours, and that you're a responsible person. Whether it has anything to do with what your job description is, they want to know everything about you, and so you have to be careful not to overshare, as it were. But in terms of demonstrating your brand, it's also a matter of providing depth to it. And what I mean is, okay, you say you're the Scottish dancer. What you would be doing is on your various platforms, whether it's Facebook or Instagram, it's be sure to be showing you in those activities. Be sure that you're wearing your brand, and people will get that message that this is who you are. And whether you find yourself in different competitions, or whether you're traveling, or whether you're training people at the skill that you're very good at, but find ways to lateralize it and show people that you're actually doing it.
So I'll use myself as an example. I know it's not the logo. The logo is not anything about branding. What it is my marketing message of the big game hunter, helping people play their game big in job search, their careers, and their lives in general. So I've created an enormous amount of content and information to demonstrate to people that I know my material, and I have testimonials all over my website from people who have worked with me, who like my work and trust me. Now, again, that's only a couple of steps that I do. But what I'm trying to do is to demonstrate to people my expertise in job search, coaching, and the like. For the average job hunter, I know they can do something similar for themselves as well, where their expertise can be manifest on the web, on a website, on LinkedIn, in groups, on YouTube, of course, on Pinterest, depending upon what their field is, and a whole host of other places where they can be discovered. Is that some of the things that you're thinking of when you're making that suggestion?
yes, that is some of the things I'm thinking of. I have to say though that I think websites are not what they used to be.
Agreed.
I think at one time they were a powerful tool because people were curious enough to go visit them. But now I think of them more as sort of like the encyclopedia of a brand, where all your information can be held in one place, and if people are so curious, they can find it there. But they're a bit dated, and what's much more useful are apps, obviously, because people are much more mobile and using mobile devices. And so, some people don't have neither desktops nor laptops. They use an iPad, they use a phone, and that is their tools. So you have to remember what people are using to find you, and the platform is very important.
So many ideas in so little time. Richard, we're starting to come up on the end of our time with one another, and I want to make sure we cover any additional points that you want to make here that will help job hunters land, not just simply in this job search, but in many searches to come. So I hand the baton to you. What sort of advice would you like to close with?
Well, what people have to do is they have to figure out what their passion is, and whether that passion translates to a job. Because if you have passion for your work, you're going to be so much happier and you're going to be so much more productive than the rest of the people who sort of just show up. And you have to be able to communicate that and share that passion, because that's going to be a big edge in the hiring process when people see that you're actually motivated beyond just, I got to get a job. What Jennifer does, both as a person and as a book, is it's a very easy to read, easy to look at guide from A to Z about getting your head in the right place about what you want to be doing and how to get there, and how to interview, and how the whole system works, whether you're a college student or a college grad or your second job or you're returning to work. I wrote this book for non-professionals because, for the most part, everyone is a non-professional when they're looking for a job. Who wants to be a professional job hunter? You want to spend your whole life just looking for a job? You need a break. You got to have a job between jobs. And what I've discovered is talking to people is that what I've been able to teach in this book is everybody will get 10, 20, 30 ideas to help them in their job process and in effect in their life process. Beautiful.
How can people find out about the book? Order a copy, the good stuff.
I know. Well, round up the usual suspects. The book is available at virtually every online department store. You can go to Amazon. You can get a Kindle version. You can order a print copy. It's a very well spent $13 for the. And you also, if you get a copy, you can share it with your friends. I don't mind. And I have to say, I do a lot of public speaking on behalf of not so much the book, but I do it to help, particularly about people figure out what they want to do and how to get there. And I'm sort of always very cheered when people write me back and say, thanks for helping me figure this out. Nobody told me how to do it. There's no course in college how to look for a job. It's ridiculous.
Agreed. Richard, thank you so much for making time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I'll have a link to where you can order the book on Amazon in the show notes, folks. And I'll be back next time with someone else who will offer you some great input on finding work. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. My website is thebiggamehunter.us. There's a lot of information there in the blog that you can watch, listen to, or read that's going to help you find work more quickly. Also want to mention, if you're interested in coaching or a consultation with me about your job search, you can order it and schedule time with me, again, through my website, thebiggamehunter.us. Folks, hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoyed the show. Take care.
For more job search advice, visit Jeff's website at thebiggamehunter.us. That's thebiggamehunter.us.